Okay, Matthew 13, a real surprise. Now, there are reasons, because we're talking about discipling people and discipleship, and to disciple, we first need to have a really good idea of what that is as far as we are concerned, so that it becomes a very natural thing. In coming here, one of the things, I don't know, you want to put it this way, if you had gone to, I don't know, some music school, and you sat around and practiced music, then it gets to a point, and it happens here with us too, that you don't think about what you're doing. You just simply do it. And I think that's one of the things that our desire is, at least for you, is that you don't have to think twice. You don't have to go, okay, what's the program? It's the life of Christ in you, which is why we focus things on the Word, and we keep going over the same thing over and over again. This, Jesus, if you look, Jesus did the same thing in this chapter. He started out with, let me tell you about the parable of the sower. In fact, he didn't say that. He said, behold, the sower goes out to sow. I'm sure everyone, he's sitting out by the beach, laying out there, catching a few rays. And all of a sudden, here comes a large multitude. I mean, that's what it says. This large multitude comes running after him. And just jumps up and decides to start talking about the parable of the sower. Then the disciples eventually get around to asking him a few questions. Subtle hint there. And he tells to the multitude, to the crowd, he continues to talk because the disciples have come to him. Picture is at the beach, speaks to the multitudes. Then the disciples come up and they ask. Then he goes in the house. Okay, or actually he gives two more parables, and then he goes in the house, and then more explanations come and more parables come. Now, we talked yesterday about the distinction between the parable of the mustard seed and leaven, and again a small worth and everyday life, versus these, which were of great worth and obvious of business. And so now we're going to take a look at these, and no matter what, they're important. Those on that side, he spoke to the multitudes. This side, he spoke to the disciples only, those that were coming in and following him. And I think it's interesting to see that those, while are very important, these are saying, now this is of great worth. You guys have followed me, and let me explain something. This is of great worth, and it really is true. So we've looked a lot at the parable of the sower. We've never quite finished it, but we are hoping to. And we've looked at the tares considerably. So let's start in verse 31, please. He presented another parable to them. And the them, look in verse 36 to remind you again, then he left the crowds and went into the house. The them is the crowds and the disciples. He presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like. Now, again, that's important. When I see the word is and like, I'm going equal sign. This one is going to explain something real precisely, but it is a parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. And this is smaller than all seeds, but when it is full grown, it is larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Okay, now, first thing is that it is like this. And in my little handy-dandy chart here, I was trying to see, if you look at these things and you don't, it's just like in meditation. If you don't take it a bite at a time and you don't do some separating of things, you're going to get mixed up, all right? And so the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, okay? Now, it's not just like a mustard seed. It's like a particular mustard seed that had something to do with it. And it's like a mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his field. So it's specific. And the reason I say it's specific is because of that little tiny word, took. We see there something that happens volitionally. In other words, it's on purpose. And the fact is not only is it on purpose, but the taking of something, I don't know, say right here, y'all can't see this, but there's this little piece of fuzz here, and I took that little piece of fuzz. I removed the piece of fuzz, as we remember from this morning when pieces of fuzz were removed from us, but it was there. What, some stranger did it? It was a string? It was. Either way, are you through interrupting? You take it. It was lifted up from other mustard seeds or pieces of lint, and either way, it is removed volitionally, willfully. A good word would be with focus. Took. And if it's that tiny, it probably took quite a bit of focus, as well as glasses for we that can't see very well anymore. The kingdom of heaven is like. Okay? Now, this is not, any of these parables are not what everything in the kingdom of heaven is like. He wouldn't have given us a number of them. But there is one thing that is in common with all of the parables that we are looking at. And somebody mentioned it this morning, and this, honestly, we could say this and go, okay, we're not going to look at it, but because if you understand this, you kind of begin to understand the parables. What's the word? Hid. Hid. The things that are secret grow. They are protected for that growth, and they are hidden. I saw a headline in the news a bit back, and some fool was writing an article, and the title of the article was, "The Bible is a very overrated book." Okay. I think we could use the word hid from that person. They don't get it. They don't understand the first thing about it. Christianity is to them just a religion, as it is to many people, and obviously a religion that they are not too concerned about. The Word of God is an overrated book. As I said, I think we can use the word hid. This person, if they've read it at all, has taken no time to understand it, nor could they. These things are spiritually discerned. When you do not have a spirit inside you, that's going to be a bit difficult to do. And especially if the only thing you're dragging around is a dead sarx, yuck. Anyway, I mean, they're not going to understand. We are encouraged, commanded, however you want to put it. We are to take volitionally, willfully. I'm going to take that and hide it. Okay? And we see mustard seed, hidden. Leaven, specifically hidden. The parable of the sower. The sower goes out to sow. Where it grows is in the good soil that has been turned up by the plow. We see a treasure hidden. Merchant. And he is what? Seeking. Hide and seek. I mean, it's hid and seek in our case, but hide and seek is being. And then the dragnet cast into the sea. Well, nothing's hidden. Really? I mean, you go off the Texas coast, you can't see but about 3 inches down below the water. I've heard about water where you can actually see through it, but I've never seen it before. In most salt water, it's got a lot of particles in it, and you can't see in it. The dragnet cast in, it's hidden. These things are hidden to be drawn up and put to use. In the case of the mustard seed, this is an odd one. So it kind of goes in an odd direction, as I think you'll see as we talk about it. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. Now, it gives a little bit of description about the seed. It's small, smaller than all other seeds, okay? But when it is full grown, it's larger than all the other garden plants, almost turns into a tree. We grew some okra one year that was 11 feet tall. It looked like a tree. And we eventually gave up because the okra was growing so fast you couldn't get in so high up there anyway. But this is from a small seed, this huge thing. But in the case of the mustard seed, I think the Lord is encouraging us not to belittle small things. It's been one of the things that I've been reminded of often through the years with IMI, knowing full well we were never going to get large, and we've been able to stay steady on that goal. I'm just letting you know, we stay small, and that's fine. But when you stop and think of people that have come out of small things, Oswald Chambers, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, what were you going to say? Watchman Nee. All he had was one feisty little lady whooping up on him from time to time. Was he in a school too? I can't remember. That she sort of corralled. Yeah. We got rid. They weeded out those other ones. That's right. And he wanted to leave a number of times. But it really is true. The Lord had the 12, and so small is perfectly fine. But it's interesting now. He tells certain things about the kingdom of heaven, and in this particular one, The parable of the sower, which we learn so much from, let us not forget something. How does he start that out? He says, the sower went out to sow. But then when he tells what it is, verse 11. To you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Okay? So we know that this is what the parable of the sower is about. That's staggering. And he's telling us about the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. And then when he starts telling them, here's what it's about, verse 18, hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the king kingdom and does not understand it, something evil happened. And then verse 20, something evil happened. Verse 22, something evil happened. Wait a second. I thought this was about the kingdom of heaven. This is what the kingdom of heaven looks like. All right? There is evil that is in it, evil that is fighting against it. The only difference between the 3 and the 1 was the plow, and the plow is volitional. At least I hope so. You don't want to be in front of a plow that's not volitional. You can get hurt badly. In other words, the soil is torn up specifically to put the seed in. But yet, evil things happened. Evil things happened. Oh, well, that's better. The next one is, parable of the tares, getting a whole lot better. An enemy comes in to the kingdom and plants seeds. Now, folks, again, we can take this as we can take these parables as the kingdom in a whole, all the people together, or we can take it as the individual person also. These parables can be looked at. How's the kingdom in your life? What does the kingdom look like in total? Now, in this one, which follows right after the parable of the tares, we have something very specific. Well, okay, it's smaller than all the other seeds, but when it's full grown, it's larger than the garden plants, becomes a tree, and the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Waiting for the cue from the woodpecker. It was his time. This is the little weed that's out here, and he's growing in this Texas flower. The fact is that in Scripture, often birds are not necessarily good critters. They're often used in an evil way. And now we know that is not true all the time. Look at the birds of the air. Look at the swallows. We have around here swallows, the chimney swifts, all sorts of different critters buzzing around here and there. Mr. Jennings saw, did you get to see that Oriole? Yeah. They're shocking.
Flew by.
Yeah, okay. They're shocking. We've got a Baltimore Oriole about this long. Has anybody seen it? Have you seen it? Back in Baltimore, the ones in Texas are bigger. Actually, no, they're exactly the same critter, but it's a very beautiful bird, dark, jet black head, and the body is what color is it? Bright yellow. Bright yellow.
It's listed as a Scots Oriole.
No, Scots is different.
The one I saw in the book.
Okay.
That's all closest I could come.
All right, yeah, it's a Baltimore. Scots do come into the area, but very rarely. I've seen one that got blown off in a storm. Yeah, but Scots live in the desert west of here, and but the one in fact, we got a pair, and they're very pretty, but. And our Lord says, well, look at he'll talk about, are not 2 sparrows sold for, so it's not always negative. But at different times it is. And this is one of those times. Because we're seeing, wait a second, kingdom of heaven, Satan comes in and they don't have a firm root, and they also get tangled up in the vines. Something bad happened. This is what the kingdom of heaven looks like. Do not kid yourself. Wait a second, I came to IMI to get the kingdom of heaven, and since I'm in God's will, shouldn't everything just be wonderful? Follow the yellow brick road and we're all going to be happy. And that might happen in eternity beyond this life. But this life gets to be pretty tough. The tares, we see an enemy come in, and here we have the birds. I find it interesting. He could have just said the birds. But he added something in. The prince of the power of the air. I just found that interesting. The birds of the air come in and they nest in its branches. You understand these are squatters. They're coming in uninvited, And yet it is talking about, I guess, I mean, why would he say that? Why couldn't he just have stopped with, it's larger and becomes a tree? Because the fact is that the kingdom of heaven gets invaded. And we see that in the last two. And then he does something remarkable, and it goes in kind of a different direction here. First, I want to read just a few things. When it is full grown, patience and perseverance. I mean, there's things that the Lord is saying in this stuff all over the place. Standing alone. Interesting. Now, this is, how have you ever been in a charismatic church for any length of time? Okay? There's something weird about, there's a lot of things weird about a lot of those charismatic churches, but they have a tendency, and I think part of it is because there's so much emotionalism in it. You can bet, I've never seen it where it did not happen, but that you're going to have people that are going to be coming into the congregation that are demonized or mentally ill, or both. It's like there's an attraction. And what do we see in the tree, the mustard seed that grows up and is almost the size of a tree, and the bird had to fly there to it. There was an attraction there. And the kingdom of heaven attracts, and it does. I've told this before. My mom, one time, we were talking about a friend of mine, and I can't remember what the subject was, and I said something about, the subject came up about the Lord and this friend. And I said, Mom, he's an atheist. And she looked at me and she said, really? Who are his friends? I stopped and I had thought about it. Every one of his close friends were Christians. Every one of them. It was funny to watch. I'd never noticed it before, but she sure had. They are attracted to that. Now, one of the reasons for the attraction, honestly, is it's sort of where they get their touch of Jesus. That's honest truth. And so the people will be attracted to it. But those of us in the kingdom trying to disciple, we'd better be aware that these birds are going to come flying in and that tares are going to get planted. And this is the way that it looks. It's not this, what was the old thing? Davis, do you remember how it went? Here's the church.
And see all the people.
Right? Yeah. You don't do that, I bet you'd do it better than me.
It's okay.
All right. Of course, that's different than the kingdom. Okay. That's the first thing. The next, anybody on the parable of the let me see if there's anything. Let's go on to the next. Verse 33. He spoke another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, specifically which a woman, volitional, took and hid. And it gets real specific there. In 3 pecks of flour until all was leavened. Now, if you don't know what leaven is, it is, what is leaven? I just went blank.
Like yeast.
West?
Yeast.
Yeast is yeast. As far as the yeast is from the
Yeast.
yeast, leaven is yeast, and it's alive. Okay, it's a living critter, and when you put it in flour, it begins to grow, and it permeates the thing, and she hid it in there, and it begins to grow and go out through there. I might add that it tastes very good. There's if you are making bread and you don't. But what do we have in the communion bread? Patterned after what? Patterned after Yeshua, but what else? Thank you. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. Those of you that don't know what happens at the time of the feast, the woman of the household in Jewish, at least the Orthodox, they go through the entire house, making sure nothing with leaven or yeast is in the house. It's all taken out. They will even go through making sure and go into the cabinets with a feather. After they finish cleaning it all out and taking that feather and brushing anything, any dust that's in there, so that it's a great picture. Because the point of leaven and what leaven means in most of Scripture is evil. It means evil. Now, in the same way here, we could say that the kingdom of heaven is like. Now, what's interesting though about this one? Everybody stop now. Come on, put on your thinking hats here. I know that's going to be tough for you, those of you that are asleep. What's different about this one? Now, I take a look at it. Okay, she hid it until it was leavened. But it's interesting. Let's take a look at this. The kingdom of heaven is like, now if we look at the first one, the parable of the sower, the kingdom of heaven would be like the field, the soils. That's really, we call it the parable of the sower, but it's the parable of the soils. And then we look in the next one, and it's the tares, but it's not really about the tares. I mean, that's just what we call it, because the real focus is we have a field here, and in that field, the tares get sown in. But what's interesting about this one is the kingdom of heaven is not like the 3 pecks of flour, the field. Kind of with the backward spin on it. Starts out with, it's like the leaven. Okay? This in the mustard seed, it's about that particular seed, which grows up and then it's invaded. But in this case, leaven, which is almost always sin in the Bible, this is actually the focus of it. And what's interesting is I believe he is actually saying here that the leaven, he's using this picture that would have been thought of as sin. He's saying, wait a second, the kingdom of heaven is like leaven. Now, this is actually good news. So stay calm here. The point is that when you hide the leaven in your heart, it grows. Okay? When you hide the leaven in your life, it produces. All right? Now, I understand that we could easily go, well, wait a second, this is leaven, and it has to be. You kind of have to twist the thing around to make it work that way, in my opinion. Ms. Davis, do you have anything to say on any of that? Anybody on anything that we've looked at so far? Again, the point is hidden until all is leavened. All right? We go on to verse 36. He reminds us reminds us again who he's told these things to. We've looked at the parable of the tares a lot, so we're going to skip down to verse 44. And the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure. Now, these get kind of strange. This one, it's like a treasure hidden. And I remember when I was first looking at these, because I'd never looked at them. And all I've done was, you listen to the preacher talk about it a little bit. And specifically, it's like a treasure in the field which a man found and hid. I mean, is this normal behavior? I mean, that's odd behavior when you think about it, and it should get your attention. Wait a second, Jesus, isn't this supposed to be that he went out in the field and he found it and everybody lived happily ever after? No. Again, willful. It's something hidden. Now, but let's go ahead and read the whole thing. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field, which a man found and hid. And from joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. He didn't buy the treasure, he bought the field. Okay? In getting the field, he got the treasure. Yes. And he didn't tell the owner of the field about the treasure, it appears to be. But remember, we are stealing from that person who thinks the Bible is an overrated book right in front of his nose. He could live his life purposely and well, but he's chosen not to. The treasure is hidden and the fellow finds it. Wow, this is great. But what he does, first, I guess the first thing, let's go back and tell the story. He's seeking. Obviously, he's seeking. It's a treasure. How's the treasure? It's hidden. It's already hidden. It's like a treasure that's already hidden in the field. Okay? And it being hidden in that field, he is seeking and he finds it. If he wouldn't have been seeking, he wouldn't have found it. He finds it, and from joy over finding that, then he does the thing that I think loudly speaks to us all. Everything. He sells everything that he has, knowing that this treasure is of such great